community development. So this is the way we are doing the activities during the pandemic. We invite scholars at home and abroad to give lecture to share some knowledge about their expertise for us. So once again, I want to thank to Professor Kabir Hassan and also Dr. Sultan Emir for this wonderful occasion. And also, we encourage everybody here in Ciputat, Jakarta to participate and to improve our knowledge and skill. So this webinar is about how to improve our journal and how to get the Scopus, something like that. I want to tell you something about that. Recently, there are some journal in Indonesia that have been awarded, improve their status to Q1. Q1, yeah. These journal are published by our institution in Jakarta and also in Yogyakarta, Surabaya. So this is very wonderful. Most of the journal are on Islamic studies and social sciences and humanities. So we want to learn more about how to improve our journal from our college, from you, and also from everybody else, and also from the attendant. So this is not to stop here because we have Q1 journal or that's enough. No, we want to do more to improve our journal. There are at least 30 or to 35 journal in our institution here in Ciputat, and we want from time to time we invite scholars to improve our journal workers to how to we have two systems. Yeah, there are SINTA system. SINTA is the national ranking institution which rank our journal, and also we want to go global. Our journal want to go global to be indexed by Scopus or Web of Science and so on and so forth. So this is the two things that I want to share with you, especially Professor Kabir Hassan and also another speakers, that we want to improve our journal despite of some difficulties that we have today in our, not only Indonesia, of course, many countries also suffer from these difficulties. So I want to give time to the moderator to facilitate the discussion. And also I want to let everybody knows that I have to leave this meeting because I have another Zoom meeting with at the same time. But of course, I will go with you again. This is all the discussion are recorded, so I can join the discussion later. Thank you very much for your attention and support. I will give the time to Ibu Nur Hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi
wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Pak Jajang Jahroni, for your welcoming speech. The next welcoming speech will be delivered by Professor Dr. Zulkifli MA, the Vice Rector for Academic Affairs, UIN Syarif Hidayatullah, Jakarta. Prof. Zulkifli, time is yours, please.
Okay. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Bu Nur Hidayah. Very good morning, everybody. First of all, let's thank God, the Almighty, that because of Him, we can organize this meeting today. And salawat dan salam also we deliver to our Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Ladies and gentlemen, we very glad to have the meeting this morning, especially for those who organize the journals at our university. I'm very sure that this meeting will very contributive to our development, especially in our publications in the future. And I just want to welcome Professor Kabir Hassan to our university through Zoom meeting. Welcome and very thank you for your time to give contribution to our meeting today. I just want to let you know that our university has more than 30 journals, nationally accredited journals. And of course, we would like to upgrade the position of our journals, especially to be indexed by international database institutions, especially Scopus and Web of Science, because this is also related to our the requirement to be respectful academia in our country, that especially when we would like to further our position as a full professor, we need to publish at the respected journals, or we say that reputed journals, internationally reputed journals. Professor Kabir Hassan, we are very thankful for your time today, and we will learn from you how to manage our journals, that we can upgrade the status of our journal, especially to be indexed by the internationally recognized database. Yeah. So again, everybody, please welcome our speakers today, and have a nice discussion today. And especially Sultan, I'm sorry, I forget the name, Sultan Emir Hidayat, the Director of Education and Research, National Committee for Islamic Finance, Economy and Finance. And also welcome to this meeting. Thank you very much and have a nice discussion today. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Prof. Zulkifli, for the welcoming speech. We come to the next welcoming speech will be delivered by Bapak Dr. Sultan Emir Hidayat, MBA, as the Director of Research and Education, the Indonesian National Committee for Islamic Economic and Finance. Pak Emir, time is yours, please.
Thank you, Dr. Nur Hidayah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. The Honorable Scholar and Speaker, Professor Dr. Muhammad Kabir Hassan, Professor of Finance, Department of Economics and Finance, University of New Orleans, USA, Islamic Development Bank Nobel Prize winner in Islamic Banking and Finance for the year 2016. Respected scholar, Professor Dr. Zulkifli, Vice Rector for Academic Affairs, UIN Syarif Hidayatullah, Jakarta. Respected scholar, Dr. Jajang Jahroni, Director of Institute for Research and Community Engagement, UIN Syarif Hidayatullah, Jakarta. Respected deans, deputy deans, moderator, and all the webinars participants from all over Indonesia. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
All praises to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, the one who always showers us His mercy and blessings, so we can gather on this special occasion virtually. Peace be upon the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the greatest role model of all time for humankind. Ladies and gentlemen, nowadays, the standard of journal management has developed very rapidly. Universities and other higher learning institutions across the world, including Indonesia, are trying to improve the quality of their journal management, because good journal management represents the academic reputation and integrity of an academic institution, as it has been mentioned by both opening remark speakers before. Additionally, a journal that is managed properly serves as a medium for scientific development dissemination. Currently, Indonesia has around 4,985 accredited journals, which are grouped into 6 categories, ranging from Sinta 1, the highest rank of an accredited journal in Indonesia. And in most cases, those journals will be indexed by Scopus until Sinta 6, the lowest rank of accredited journal. However, the current number of accredited journals is still far from the target set by the Ministry of Research and Technology, Republic of Indonesia. The ministry aims to have around 7,000 accredited journals. And in addition, so far we have only around 67 journals which have been indexed in the Scopus database, whilst there is no journal in Indonesia that has been indexed in the Web of Science except AHCI, in which more than 50 journals have been indexed under the classification. Ladies and gentlemen, at least 2 important aspects need to be considered in journal management. First, publishing management aspect with the aim of developing international visibility in terms of authors, reviewers, and editors. Second, substance of the published articles aspect, whereby the journal's editors must present scientific evidence contribution from the articles published in the journal. If these 2 aspects are fulfilled by a journal, then inshallah, the journal is ready to be categorized as a reputable journal and will be indexed in Scopus or in Web of Science. Ladies and gentlemen, Alhamdulillah, on this great day, National Committee for Islamic Economy and Finance, Republic of Indonesia, KNIKS, or Komite Nasional Ekonomi dan Keuangan Syariah, in collaboration with Universitas Islam Negeri Syarif Hidayatullah, Jakarta, State Islamic University of Jakarta, we are conducting an international webinar titled Learning Best Practices, How to Index a Journal in Scopus and Web of Science. Our deep appreciation goes to Professor Dr. Muhammad Kabir Hasan, who is willing to spend his time to share his vast experience in managing many reputable international journals in academic fields. I personally encourage Islamic economics and finance related journals in Indonesia that wish to be indexed in Scopus and or Web of Science to be coached by him, to be trained by him, given his credential, proven track record, and expertise. I hope that all participants who are mostly journal editors in their institution can learn the best practices from Professor Kabir Hassan's presentation today, particularly on how to improve the quality or standard of a journal. I also would like to thank all parties, both in UIN Syarif Hidayatullah Jakarta and KNIKS, particularly in UIN Syarif Hidayatullah, to the Vice Rector for Academic Affairs, Director of Institute for Research and Community Engagement, and all other parties whom I cannot mention their names one by one here that help us in successfully organizing this international webinar. Lastly, enjoy the webinar and thank you very much for your attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Thank you very much, Pak Director, for your very motivating welcoming speech. Okay, now we come to the next program, the Memorandum of Agreement signing ceremony between the Indonesian National Committee for Islamic Economic and Finance and Syarif Hidayatullah State Islamic University Jakarta, between Faculty of Economic and Business and also Faculty of Sharia and Law. For the time being, maybe Faculty of Economic and Business will be represented by Professor Muhammad Al-Arif.
Pak Emir, teknisnya gimana Pak?
Pak
Emir,
silakan Pak Emir di
Kita tanda tangan terus kita liatin aja ya, Pak Arif.
Oke, sip.
Kemudian mungkin Dr. Nur Hidayah jelaskan kerjasamanya sedikit tentang apa gitu, kalau boleh.
Yeah, so this is actually the memorandum of understanding for the joint collaboration between the Indonesian National Committee of Islamic Economic and Finance with the Jakarta State Islamic University, particularly Faculty of Economic and Business and Faculty of Sharia and Law in terms of the research and publications, and especially among the journal under the two faculty, under the both faculty. In Faculty of Economic and Business, we have how many, Pak Al-Arif?
Ada 4, Bu.
Oh, okay. We have for
journal.
journals, economy, significant,
esensi, and akuntabilitas.
Significant and akuntabilitas. All has been accredited by the Ministry of Higher Education and Research, and also with the Faculty of Sharia and Law, we have three at the time that has been accredited. Sintatu, Al-Iqtisad Journal, Al-Ahkam Journal, and also Cita Hukum Journal. Sintatu accredited, and also Salam Journal, Sinta 4 accredited.
So there are many journals who are already accredited Sintatu. So it means very close to Scopus, Professor Kabir.
I see. Very good.
Yeah, hopefully we can follow journal Studia Islamica in Jakarta State Islamic University, who had accredited Sinta 1 and has been accredited by indexed by Scopus with Key 1, Quartile 1. Oke, Pak Emir ada tambahan lagi? Do you want to add?
No.
Pak Prof. M. Nuryanto Al-Arif, would you like to add some? Okay. Thank you very much. Silakan Pak. Okay, hopefully by signing this MOA, We will strengthen our collaboration between CNEX and Win Syarif Hidayatullah Jakarta, and hopefully more journal in Win Jakarta will be indexed by Scopus.
Amin ya rabbal alamin.
Amin ya rabbal alamin. Ladies and gentlemen, let's come to our main program this morning. Our international webinar on learning best practices how to index journal in Scopus and Web of Science will be delivered by Professor Muhammad Kabir Hassan as the Professor of Finance at the Department of Economics and Finance, the University of New Orleans, USA, and then Editor-in-Chief Journal of Islamic and Middle Eastern Journal of Finance and Management. Professor Muhammad Kabir Hassan, times is yours, please.
Okay, can I share my screen? Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. And good morning. It must be in the morning in Jakarta. It's 9:34 p.m. on Monday night in New Orleans, Louisiana. Those who do not know, New Orleans is a state very close to Texas, Alabama, and where the hurricanes hit every year. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. So actually, Sultan, Professor Zulkifli, Professor Arif, and Professor Zarumi has probably set the stage how I'm going to talk about it. Now, 70% what I'll be saying, those who are engaged in journal publishing, editing already know. And the sources from Scopus and Web of Science. Now, you already know that you already told me, and I'm really encouraged to know that you have a national committee which indexes journal at a national level. So that's the starting point. I always say this because you have to have your own set of criteria against which you measure yourself rather than depending on the foreigners to come and tell you what is good and not good. And this is especially, we feel acutely in the field of Islamic, anything Islamic sciences, whether it's Islamic banking, finance, Sharia, law, or anything like this, because the West is not fully equipped to appreciate us fully. And the journals, all the major journals started from the Western countries. So you have to keep this in mind, and that's why you need this national accreditation thing. So there are two types of indexing. Scopus.
Can you make it full screen, Prof? Full screen?
This is full screen. Okay. Can you see it now? Hello?
Yes.
Okay.
Now.
So
Better.
there are Scopus is administered or owned by Elsevier, which is a publishing house, and Web of Science is owned by Clarivate. It used to be owned by Thomson Reuters. These are two separate indexing mechanism, and Web of Science is more exclusive than Scopus. Now, many people ask me the question, how should we start? Actually, you can start both processes simultaneously. And there are ways that you need to engage yourself. So if you look at Scopus, is the largest database. It has thousands of books, publishing, journals. And if you look at the bottom of these things, there's 1.4 plus billion cited references 1970. There are 75 million record to 24,000 say active art titles. So all this information are easily available from the internet. But if you look at the coverage area of the Scopus, social science dominates about 32%. Physical science about 27%, and health sciences is 23%, and life sciences 16%. It also depends on how the knowledge base has evolved, so that distribution reflects that. Now, what are the basic steps of being part of the Scopus? First, you have an initial evaluation. then the selection, then the reevaluation, then ethics. But whatever you do, this is done by called Content Selection Advisory Board, is a key player in deciding which journal they are going to include in Scopus or not. Now, there are some basic takeaways from the evaluation process. First, there has to be visibility of the publications, the access to the global audience. Now, the number 4,000 plus journals that you have mentioned, you do have a national audience, but many of them probably has not gone beyond national boundary to reach the global audience. So that's where one of the requirements that in order to be indexed in Scopus or Web of Science, track performance of the publication, whether your work is being cited, and monitor competitive publication. It's not only that you are a journal, but you also look at your performance vis-a-vis against another journal. Now, these content selection advisory board are appointed, they're independent, they're international, there are regional boards as well. There is one in Thailand, South Korea, Russia, and China. Most likely the journals, those are, if it is a regional focus from Indonesia, we looked by the editor from Thailand or South Korea or China, these close neighboring states. Now, it originates with the journal editors. Editor has to, the Scopus is not going to knock your door. You have to come to Scopus. Latvians has to reach out to Scopus. The bibliometrician sometimes also mention a journal to the Scopus. Now, the purpose of this board is to advise on technical and academic development of the system and debate the complexities of different types of journals and so on. Now, once the journal is submitted, the experts at that CSB to the evaluation is internal and external subject experts. So they have different categories of people. So if it is a finance journal, so they will send a set of finance editors. A combination of qualitative and quantitative factors are considered before reaching a final decision of selection. While anyone can suggest a new title, a solid support from the publisher, in your case, university, or a well-known editor is a prerequisite to get noticed by Scopus. So this is the bare minimum you must do. Then there are Scopus title evaluation process. So you have to have a key information, and there is a software-based online information collection system. So once you do this, you can actually check. There are 7 steps you have to pass. The first thing is key information. Then this key information is processed against a standard criteria set by Scopus, and evaluation by the subject chair or nominated reviewers. And key information, you know, basic things. And I have been invited to be on the board of editors on a number of Indonesian journals. And I see their website are very well developed. They have the aim, publisher, editors, editorial system, publication history, all the key information that you need to have. And then that information is processed against a standard set of criteria. Scopus team will undertake a range of checks and technical evaluations, and additional information might be asked from the publisher as well. So if I need more information, I'll come back to you sometime. It might happen, hey, I checked your website, but there is no policy on ethics. So you really need to put the policy of ethics before it can move to the next one. And finally, it is done by the subject chair. As I said, there are a number of chairs. If you can go, I think there are 14 different subject chairs in the Scopus website, those who look at the quality of the journal. So there are 4 minimum introductory checklist. Peer review, it has to be a peer-reviewed journal. Peer-reviewed content, publicly available explanations on peer review process. You must tell the authors or audience that how you decide on accepting or rejecting a journal. You have to have an ISSN number. You have to have an international audience, means in the sense it cannot be in Baha Indonesia language. It has to have an English, no Roman numerals. Or at least you have to have a part of English abstract and main documents has to be in English in order to be recognized by Scopus. There has to be ethics and malpractice policy, and all these things has to be accessible to the public. No hide and seek here. Now, the 5 broad categories and criteria for the journal. There has to be a journal policy, as I said, convincing editorial policy, type of peer review, diversity in geographical distribution of editors and authors. So if all the authors in your journal are concentrated from Indonesia, it is not going to get the international attention. If all the board of editors are from Indonesia, that's not going to help. So you have to have an international diversification, not only international country-wise or region-wise, also by sex-wise, male and female, and they are looking at the gender equity in a big way, this indexing, Scopus, and Web of Science. The content, the academic contribution to the field, they look at very carefully. Bad publication doesn't help you. It's better not to publish than to publish a bad article. Clarity of abstracts, quality of conformity to aims and the scope of the journal. So your journal have a scheme and a scope, and whatever you publish, that has to be conformity to this one. So you are a journal of banking finance, you should not be writing how COVID is spread, the scientific part of it. You can publish an article how COVID is impacting Islamic finance industry. So the relevance has to be there. A journal standing cited the journal articles in Scopus, whether Scopus, any Scopus has really mentioned any article published in your journal. I'm coming to this point later. The editor standing, the editor has to be non-commodity. Non-commodity in the sense that people know him or her. So, you know, this is something you really need to look at very carefully, because I'm originally from Bangladesh, so we have this regional cultural barrier. Now, there is also a lot of politics involved. You really need to appoint an editor who is a well-respected scholar rather than a political thing. Because if the person is not known, Scopus is not going to pick up, and the authors who want to submit to your journal is not going to submit, because the legitimacy is very important to the rest of the world. Publishing regularly, there has to be online presence. And I have noticed all the journals that I sit on the editorial board, they have all these things. Some way you have passed this stage, but let me tell you, many other countries don't even know that what it is. So Alhamdulillah, in their sense, Indonesia is ahead of the game. And also I'm very proud that Indonesian government has taken a political decision to promote Islamic economy to benefit for the humanity. So it is not only for Muslims, we believe that is for everyone. Now, annual reevaluation to identify and delist under from journals 3 ways, okay? It doesn't mean that you got into Scopus and you start partying and you forget about doing your stuff. You will be continuously reevaluated, and if you fall off from the standard, they might delist. If you go to the Scopus website, you'll see which journals they have been delisted, and they give you the reason. And how they do this, the 6 metrics and benchmark they use, they have a radar, a software, artificial intelligence for identifying outliers, some misbehavior, and they are also opinion. So if you know a certain journal is doing bad things or bad editorial policy, you can report it to the Scopus, and Scopus is going to investigate it. And if they find it's true, that also will be cause for your delisting. So what are the 6 metrics and benchmark you do? The self-citation rate cannot be more than 200%. The total citation rate must be less than 50% company average in this field. You have the cite score, number of articles published. So you cannot have just, okay, 2 issues, 5 articles. That doesn't do it. So you have to have one of this thing. They will ask you whether your journal, if it is indexed in Scopus, a sustainable journal. That means it is a growing field. There will be more research coming in, and enough research will be able to continue with the ongoing publication of this journal. So number of full text clicks on the Scopus.com. So if somebody goes to Scopus, unfortunately, if you're not in the Scopus, you're not in the Scopus database. But once you're in, they will also look at how many people looks at your journal for whatever reason. Probably they are looking for a reviewer, or they're looking for an article, and so on. And abstract use in Scopus.com also. So these are the 6 metrics they're going to use in order to evaluate a journal which already been in the Scopus indexing. So Scopus will allow journals 1 year to improve at least 1 metric. But if the Scopus find that you fail all 6 metrics consecutively for 2 years, you're out. They will delist you. Then you have to start from 0-1 to come back to Scopus again. So it is necessary that to get into Scopus, but it's not sufficient to remain in Scopus. You have to keep improving yourself. And having said this, I have noticed that, many universities, they keep changing their editor. If you do, and if you have an objective that you want to get into Scopus, you must select an editor at least 2 terms, 3 years per term. So the 6 years, that person can have a sort of enough time to do the dry job to get indexed in the Scopus. And there, as I said, the rudder is an AI introduced 2017. It's an Elsevier-made algorithm to flag outlier journal behavior that include rapid and unexplainable changes to a number of articles published. I can tell you anecdotal evidence. Many journal editors lost their journal editing because they want to favor someone. So the article was submitted and it was accepted in 7 days later. It's impossible. But those artificial intelligence can pick those abnormalities, unexplainable changes, geographic diversity. All of a sudden you heard that there has to be an international scholar, and then you keep putting in people from all over the world without having a trend. So you have to do it patiently, slowly, and so on. Self-citation rated too much, and you have the publication constant ethics. I'm talking about plagiarism, copying and publishing somebody else's journal and so on. Now, the publication ethics is very important. Concern can be raised on either the publisher or journal level. Publication concerns are often raised by research community. So if I find an article I'm writing, and nowadays Turnitin can pick up very easily, oh, this guy stole my paper, or the paper that I have written is very similar to the other paper, or only simply changing some numbers here and there. So all these things can be on the ethical issue. The Scopus runs serious investigation on an yearly basis. When found legitimate, journal will be flagged for reevaluation. Then you go to square one, back to ground zero. Then you have to go back to the process. Now the publication ethics, Scopus, every journal has clear and publicly available statements of publication ethics and publication malpractice. It will hold each publisher listed in the database accountable for the performance and compliance with these policies. Having said this, you can go to the website. There is a list of predatory journals. The journal can be predatory because they play this game. Also the publisher can be predatory, and they will publish very article quickly on a fee basis. So you have to be very careful. And I would ask the Indonesian universities to make sure, discourage this behavior to publish very quickly in predatory journals, because many of the journals, even someone made it to Web of Science, finally they got caught and they got delisted, Scopus. So do not publish in those journal, because if you want to remain in academia in future, that's going to bite you. So there are a number of organizations that look at this thing. The one that we are more for social science is Committee on Publication Ethics. It tells you what is publication ethics is. If it is something found somebody is doing wrongdoing, a scientific misconduct, what are the procedure to follow? So when the publication malpractice statement, these are the 10 things has to be there in the statement. So you can go back and look at this, whether you have these 10 statements are there. Basic guidelines, 10 requirements in the following: editorial board, what are their duties, authors and author responsibilities, what is the peer review process, was a single blind, double blind, what is the publication ethics, if there is a plagiarism, caught or some other scientific misconduct, data manipulation, you have to, what is the procedure, copyright and access, archiving, ownership and management, website, publishing schedule, whether it's published regularly, unique name of the journal. So these 10 things must be there. So I would advise you, go back to your drawing board, look at your publication ethical statement that you have in the journal, whether you have all these 10 requirements or not. For the time being, it not, but when you apply for Scopus, they are going to look at one by one, click, 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 because it is picked up by an algorithm, by a computer. So it's that's not human touch. So if there's something missing, there's a flag, and it puts back on into the another basket. So selection, there could be Scopus books as well, monographs, edited volumes, major reference, and graduate level textbook. Scopus does not publish undergraduate level textbook, atlas, or yearbook. specific Scopus book suggestion form which stresses on the following minimum criteria. So it's very similar to a journal, but it is done on a yearly basis. Scopus, like review criteria, reputation and impact of the publisher, size and subject area of the book list, availability and format of the book contents, public policy, editorial mission, quality of public book content. So we are focusing on, I know, on journal only, but you may have a university publishing house. They publish scholarly book, and that book can also be indexed in Scopus if you do this right, and it is done on a yearly basis, usually during the summertime. There can be conference paper as well. If the conference is done by a reputable organization, you can contact Scopus, and the Scopus has their own policy, and if it meets this criteria, that conference papers can also be Scopus indexed.
Prof, you need to fix your earphones if you don't mind. Your earphones.
Yeah.
We can hear your sounds, Prof. So I think yes, your sound is not clear.
Oh my God, it's doing it.
Your sounds before is great, but now it's just diminished.
Okay, let me, I think it's doing it again. Let me change my computer, okay? Oh, I don't know why it's doing that. Okay, let's see. Okay, Tika sent me this thing, right? Excuse me, let me change my computer. So Tika. Time to start. Okay, join meeting. What is the meeting ID? Okay, I'm connected. Can you do me? Hello, can you hear me? Let me get out of this computer and connect you with the other one, okay?
But now we can still, yeah.
Clear now.
Now it's
Can you
good.
see me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, yes. Okay.
Okay. Very good.
Good.
Start my video. Okay. What I'm doing wrong now? I want to share my okay. Okay. Can you do you see my screen? Hello?
Not yet,
Not
Prof.
yet, Prof.
Not yet.
Okay, can somebody give me the screen share opportunity? How can I share screen? It should be somewhere.
Just click the share button, the green one. Can I share the share button, that green one, and then choose the file that you would like to display? Usually the bottom is on the middle of the screen, the underneath one.
But the host has to make him as a host first before he could share the screen.
Bunur,
Yeah, I still
give the access of co-host for Prof. Kabir, or Bu
Yeah.
Maila, or Bu Umi.
I haven't. I'm still searching from Prof. Kabir Hassan's names. Mana ya?
Can you hear me?
Yes, Prof.
Yes, yes, Prof.
Okay, let me turn on the light. Okay. Okay, I'm back. Start my video. I did. More. Can you allow me to share my screen again? Okay. Okay. Share screen. Okay. Can you see me now again?
Yes, yes, Prof. We can see. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. I'm sorry for this computer. Okay, I'm in a different room with a different computer. Okay, so I just finished talking about Scopus. Now I want to talk about Web of Science. So Web of Science, as I said, is more exclusive. It started with Dr. Eugene Garfield in 1955. So there is a little history. You know, it had different names at different time. It used to be owned by Thomson Reuters until 2016, and 2016 it is bought by Clarivate Analysis. And 2018 they have also used some artificial intelligence, you know, algorithm to do bibliometric analysis of different Web of Science journals. Okay, there are 6 different indices, Web of Science. And Sultan was mentioning that Arts and Humanities Citation Index. Apparently, there are a number of journals from Indonesia indexed there. So you have the Science Citation Index expanded, Social Science Citation Index, Arts and Humanities Citation Index, Emerging Sources Citation Index, Conference Proceedings Citation Index, and Book Citation Index. So if you look at this diagram, if you see, so you have on the top this called this core, Web of Science Core Collection, SCIE, SSCI, AHCI, and all of the Islamic Banking Finance journals fall under the SSCI. So there is an evaluation criteria, quality, and impact criteria. So you can, once you do this, I'll tell you the process,
You can be in a book, BKCI, CPCI, or the thing that you need to look at ESCI. So when you apply, I would say that simultaneously apply for Scopus and Web of Science, and let the process continue parallelly. And it's not a necessary requirement that it have to be Scopus before you get into SSCI. So again, this I said previously, for Scopus they have the 6 criteria, but for Web of Science there is a single set of 28 criteria for evaluation. So this is more exclusive, and 24 criteria at the journal level for the editorial rigor. So editorial board matters for Web of Science, the best practice matters, and there are 4 criteria for most influential journals using citation activity as primary indicators. When met the criteria, journal will enter ESCI on Web of Science score collection, and when they gather enough citation, and they will eventually get into the one of these 3: SSCI, SCIE, AHCI. Now let's look at how do I get out of this thing? Okay, so do you see that there are triage, we call this. So once you submit a journal to Web of Science, and there is a website you can do that, there's the initial triage, there is editorial triage, editorial evaluation, and there is an impact criteria. So once you start the editorial triage, if there is an unsuccessful outcome, so they will tell you resubmit. So let's say these are the 7 things that you need to have, like ISNI, journal title, journal publisher, URL, content access, presence of peer review policy, contact details. If any of this information is missing, they will tell you resubmit or give us the missing information. Once that step is passed, it goes to the quality criteria, editorial trials. There are 2 parts to it. Once this quality editorial trials is there, they will look at these things on the basis of these metrics. So for example, scholarly content of the article of the journal, article titles and article abstract, bibliometric information, Roman script, clarity of language, timeliness and publication volume, website functionality of journal format, presence of ethics statement, editorial affiliation details, author affiliation details. So if any of these thing is missing, and at this stage, the Web of Science will send it back to you and say that, okay, complete the missing information. Once these 2 steps are done, it goes to this editorial evaluation process. So editorial board composition. So editorial board is very important. Validity of statement, peer review, content relevance, grant support details, against community standards, author distribution, all the metrics that we talked about, Scopus, that also applies here. Appropriate citation to the literature. So when you pass in this editorial evaluation, then you enter ESCI. So once you enter in ESCI, you'll be there for 2 years before it will be evaluated again on the basis of a citation, and then it will go to enter SCIE, SSCI, AHCI. This is one of the 3 categories that will go in. Now, as I said, in each stage, the review online submission system, in-house editorial review, 4 stages of review, 24 plus 4, initial review of or initial triage, 7 out of the 24 items you must comply with, and the editorial triage, 9 out of 24 you must comply with, so 7 plus 9, 16, and editorial evaluation, the remaining 8 you must comply with. Once you do step 1, 2, and 3 on the screen, then you will be indexed in ESCI, Emerging Sources Citation Index. Once your Emerging Sources Citation Index, your citation is being collected, and they will collect it for 2 years, and they will evaluate this against the other journals within the field. And after that, these 4 items they talk about, when done, journal edited subject specific indices. And if you fail, you go back to ESCI and you run this operation for another 2 years. Now, important dimension of our criteria categories are almost similar, Web of Science and Scopus. However, Web of Science applies stringent 2-layer policy and 2-year embargo. Web of Science applies clearer subject-specific indices, and both cover books and conference, but Web of Science has lesser gray areas. Now, having said this, so patience is very important here. You know, I very often I get email or help, Prof, we want to get our journal index in the Scopus or Web of Science. It's not going to work that way. You have to be patient, you have to follow the process, and if you do all these things, it will be included in Scopus, it will be included in ESCI and so on. So let me tell you my own personal journey of a journal that I started from scratch, made it to Scopus, ESCI, and SSCI. And I became, and I want to simultaneously compare my journal with another journal. I'm on the editorial board in Indonesia, published by Bank Indonesia, Journal of Islamic Monetary Economics and Finance. So I want to give some tidbit for that journal, how it can, because I believe that it will be indexed in Scopus very soon, because it is doing all the things right. So as I said, you know, I'm in the SSCI, they are not in the process. Both has ISSN, then Ischemico Journal and Country Index, we have H Index 25, and it is done because it is not still rated. Peer-reviewed content, both has English language, both has is online publication ethics, both has online publication ethics. The title of the journal is unique in both cases. Does the journal have publication history of at least 2 years? Yes, because we started in 2008. And for this new journal for Bank Indonesia, it also has 2 years because it started in April 16, 2018. Headline editor determined. I am the editor, and for Bank Indonesia journal is Dr. Peri Ujiao. I think he's the governor of the central bank, because according to this institution policy, the governor becomes the chief editor. And have you are online professional information, the main handling editor? Yes, yes, and so on. Now, for my journal, there are some statistics I want to share today. This morning, somebody sent me an email that we are in Scopus, we are in Web of Science, we're in ABDC, we are in ABS, and we also got included in CNRS. It's a French indexing. So Alhamdulillah, that's a good news. I got it today. On the average, we do early side version of any article published in 32 days. So that's very important. Timeliness is very important. And the Scopus site score 2019 is 1.9, 2020 is 2.0. Web of Science impact factor, we just got the Web of Science 2019 is 1.20. It used to be 0.75 last year. And if you look at our citation has also increased substantially by over 100. Now, if you look at the journal, and this is also I want to tell you as a way of example how you can apply to your own journal. Even though one of the criteria was the geographic reach, still the top 5 countries they publish in my journal coming from Tunisia, Pakistan, Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, Malaysia, all are Muslim majority countries or Muslim countries. And the top 5 institutions are coming from either Malaysia or Indonesia. So we are lacking in that respect, even this journal. So as an editor, I have to develop a strategy so that I can invite articles from the rest of the world as well. Now, basic coverage to high growth areas is Islamic finance and management. Our core strength, diverse editorial and advisory board. And actually, I have a very big advisory board. I have probably right now 100 editorial advisory board member. I have tried to include every possible Islamic finance scholar recognizable, try to include into my editorial board. And they are really my ornament. They help us in order to evaluate papers, and they're very helpful to us. Subject and topic level experts. We have from 2008, Scopus cover started, listed in Scopus is 2018, listed in SSCI it should be 2008, listed on Scopus, SSCI it was 2018. So I just want to give you the timeline. I started in 2008, 10 years later, after 2 round of trying, and it is published by an UK-based international publisher, I got into Scopus. So why I'm saying this? I'm saying this because you really need to be patient in order to get your journal indexed in the Scopus. And 2018, I became SSCI, and my journal ranking is improving since then. Now, I already talked about Journal of Islamic Monetary Economics and Finance. This has all the good things. It is published by Bank of Indonesia, a very powerful organization behind it. And I predict that is going to move very quickly into the citation index and into indexing index as well. So it's Islamic economics, monetary economics, Islamic finance. It has a clear review process. And I have published there myself, very good editorial policy. And it is run by Professor Dr. Ascaria. He's doing a great job. But there are certain things now this journal can do in order to improve or go to the next level. Once the standard reporting practice are followed, constant journal should emphasize impact building. This is why it is missing. Diversity of the editorial board, currently 5 out of 17 members of the board are from Indonesia. Now, topic and subject specific editorial board, they can include workload of the managing editors. Many introduce topic specific associate editorial positions. Easily readable reviewer and editorial guidelines. Guideline is available as a tutorial in media format, which might be difficult to follow. So they really can look at this thing. There's certain cosmetic change they can do very quickly. Briefly explain how the manuscript is finally selected. Call for paper on special and interview topics by international acclaimed editors. Guest editing on special issues is going to help them, because a guest editor, international reputable author, and he or she can gather articles from reputable scholars as well. Many provide details and connect sponsorship through conferences and increased affiliations with international conferences and important regional institutions. Now, you probably hear about this JCR, Journal Citation Reports. Journal Citation Report include journal index only within SCI and SSCI. And only journals contained with the Journal Citation Report are awarded a Journal Impact Factor. So here I tell you briefly what is the difference between Scopus and Web of Science. In gist, Web of Science is more exclusive and more elegant than Scopus. Scopus has many more journals. So yes, if you can, your primary goal should be to get into Scopus and then to Web of Science, but you should run the both evaluation process parallelly. One is not dependent on the other. I must tell you there is different journal ranking kind of thing. You'll see when you Google some journal name, there will go SGR, size score, SNP, impact factor. I want to emphasize ranking does not mean quality. So don't, just because a journal is a Q1 does not mean it's a quality level journal. So you have to keep this in mind, because these are all bibliometric, scientific, scientometric analysis, data analysis, and there is a room for manipulation. But quality ultimately will be determined the longevity of the journal, who are publishing there, who are making an impact into the industry. So how to increase the relevant submission? There are 4 things. Publish hot topics. So that's where comes in, special issue. By editorial policy and associate editorship help, you publish hot topics. So if you have a journal, you can right now, I'm doing a special issue for Journal Economy Malaysia that's published by Islamic University Malaysia, I believe, on a special issue on COVID and Islamic finance. So you can invite international scholars to do this. Reviewer help and better experience, improve quality of papers is very important. I mean, people will only read your paper if it's a quality paper. If they feel that it's like a rehash or it's a poor quality, they are not going to pay attention. So you really must put your emphasis and your effort to make sure that you attract quality papers. You improve the procedures of the journal, improve all stakeholders' experience. If somebody submits a paper to your journal and you do not respond in 6 months, doesn't look good. By journal development, personal journal advisors. So here you have to do a marketing the journal as well. So you may be doing 1 or 2 things right, but you have to market yourself too. It's not good enough that you're good. You must also let other people know that you are good. So there are a number of, journal marketing 101. You must have a social media presence. If a issue is published, you can do this in different social media or relevant area. And you can have your own blog group, or you have one chat group and so on. You have to convey your message. I'm not very good with all these things. Actually, I'm trying to learn myself how to market my journal myself. You have different tools to journal homepage. In the first, people will find out more about your journal. You can do in the Google Scholar, or you can do something with the Google Scholar that whenever your journal is typed, it comes to be first, and that's the way you can also increase your visibility on the web. You share your content in new ways. You try using shared it links of journal articles to different medias and so on. And I know, mashallah, the younger generation, I'm very old guy, you are very good in social media, and you can follow all those things in order to improve your journal. So that is pretty much, I'm sorry for this interference with this computer, and this is all I have to say, and I can answer any specific questions that you may have. And I want to acknowledge, and I have used online published materials to prepare this presentation from Scopus and Clarivate, and also my own experience. And I want to thank you all. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Prof. Kabir Hassan, for a very insightful presentations. So yeah, actually Scopus and Web of Science have a different policy, but they have a similar criteria for the journal submitted to be indexed. And also Prof. Kabir also recommend for the journal editor who would like to apply for the index, for that international indexes, to submit it together at the same parallel. And also at the end, Prof. Kabir also give us some tips how to promote our journal. First, the first one is publish the hot topics, and also improve the quality of the paper, and also improve all the stakeholder of the journal. And the most important, last but not least, is marketing the journal using all the social media platform provided right now. Okay, so now we come to the question and answer sessions. Actually, I have already asked participants to write down some questions in the group chat. And also, if other participant would like to give comment or question to Professor Kabir Hassan, you can also raise your hand using in the participants column, and then you can click more, and then in the more you can raise your hand. Okay, maybe now I will unmute all, and then give opportunity for those who would like to raise some question to Professor Kabir Hassan.
Mas, beli jamu 4.000 jadi 6.000. Kamu kasih berapa? Kasih itu. Berapa tadi itu yang 2.000 pakai
This
jadi pas kembalian. Kalian kan jamunya 4.000. Jamunya 4.000 nya
Take the
2.000.
liberty, I see
Bapak kan
some of
duitnya
the questions
5.000.
from the
Ibu
chat.
duitnya
Can I
2.000.
just answer a few of them?
Prof.
Yeah, there are a few questions from the chat. Can I just take some of this and answer it?
Yes, Prof.
Okay, so one person's can Prof. Kabir explain more about the index is not relevant to quality. So indexing does not necessarily imply a high quality journal. You'll find some journals and you wonder how did it get so much high impact factor. Part of the reason is that they market their journal better than the other journals. But why you shouldn't do that? If you think that you're good, you already have a good product, you should try to promote yourself, and there is nothing un-Islamic about it. But you have to do it in an ethical way. There are some unethical ways people do that. I would not, and personally, I really don't promote my journal either, because I've been in the academy for a long time. I have a series of students, and they promote the journal on their own. And there was another question, is there any fee for submission? No fee. You can submit it today. I mean, right after you are done, if all the materials are ready, but I would do my homework before I submit the first submission. Make sure you meet all the criteria, all the documents are written and written in proper English, because anything can, they get probably every week, 50, 60 submission. So you have to stand yourself out in order to make sure it catches the eyes of the CSAB for the Scopus and for the Web of Science, their own editorial board.
Okay, yes. So, yeah, Prof has already answered the question about the, actually the index. Not,
Somebody raised their hand. Azwar, Pragodi Azwar, you can ask questions.
Yeah. Is there any more question here? There is also another question, Prof. If one journal is Scopus Index recently, would it be included straight away in the Scopus ranking? Quartile 1, 2, 3, 4? If yes, how is the process?
Okay. Scopus has nothing to do with Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. Okay. It is done by the SJR, Journal JCR, Journal Citation Report. They have their own way, and they sort of compare the citation against a benchmark, against its competitor, and so on. But sometimes I hear this word a lot outside the United States, North America. You look at, it's a Q1, it's a Q2, Q3. That metrics is very fuzzy to me. I would rather base upon this impact factor, which is a more recognizable of doing it. I would look at ABDC ranking they have done. They are more scientific way, more human involvement. The Scopus and Web of Science are more based on technology, and you can manipulate the technology more than you can manipulate the human brain. So if you ask me, I would not really look into Q1, Q3, Q4 right away. Just focus on Scopus or Web of Science. And if you have to follow this ABDC or ABS or this French ranking that I talked about. In the absence, because you have to understand, Scopus is a business model for Elsevier. Elsevier want to make money. So, and very often you'll hear this word, they will come back, okay, you do very well, this and that, but your journal management policy or system is not up to date. So we have this, Scholar One or editorial manager, you can subscribe to it, that will make it better. So that's another way of selling your product. So you have to keep this in mind. And they have tempted me several times to do it with another journal, but I have never budged. I waited, but sometimes, they can play this game. And if you have this urgency that I want to get into Scopus, you have to pay a price for that indirectly to the publisher. So keep this in mind. Scopus and Web of Science is owned by a commercial entity. They want to make money out of it. So you have to keep this in mind too. Don't sell your soul just because you want to be included into Scopus or Web of Science, because they will try to sell you different product with not directly, implicitly, that will accelerate your process to be included in Scopus.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. There is also another question from Pak Asep Dadan. Pak Asep Dadan asks, most of journal index by Scopus put on high payment for submission. How to know some of the journal listed but no charge or free submission? How to know the free submission journal but index Scopus, Prof?
Actually, my journal is a free submission, no submission fee. So Scopus really doesn't look at whether it's a submission fee or not, okay? And you cannot really afford to pay, start a submission fee in your journals in Indonesia, because the level of national income is low. Because in the United States, that's another thing. There's also somewhere is a disparity I mean, structural disparity. I mean, well, those who live in the rich countries, and these journals, but most of the 90% of the Web of Science and Scopus, the top ranked journals are based in North America or few European countries. And because some of the journals, even submission fee is very restrictive. Like one journal, I submitted a paper just recently. It cost me $450 just submission fee, and it can be rejected within 1 week. So that really restricts papers to get into these journals. But at the same time, that also restricts, because there's a tendency I've noticed in my journal, I get about 600 plus submission fee, and about 50% of them of these are trash. They really should not submit this paper to my journal, because they write something and they send it back because there is a cost to them. But there's a cost on the other side, right? On the editorial board, editorial policy, and so on. I spend quite a bit of my time managing the journal. So there is a pro and con, but the Scopus and Web of Science is not based on the submission and no submission. Sorry, I'm talking about submission fee or no submission fee.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Prof. Another question is from Prof. Based on your experience, what makes a journal or an article impactful? What are the criteria to be an impactful journal or an impactful paper journal?
Okay. First of all, you know, this research skill is a skill that needs to be nurtured, honed, learned. There are a few basics of research, how to do research. Like if you write a paper, you have to have an introduction, you have to hypothesis, literature review, data collection, data analysis, and two things really. Why you're writing this paper? Why your author will be interested in reading this paper? What is new about this paper? And what impact is going to have? That's the question the journal editor is asking. The reader of your paper is asking, why should I read this paper? So you must have something new, something that somebody has not touched before, that I want to learn by reading this article. Now, it's easy for me to say, it comes with years of experience and mentorship and so on. Now, one of the problems that you face, because Islamic finance and banking is a new area, and different people has different misgivings about this area. Many people say there's a fad, it's going to go away, and many people say there's a fundamentalist, you know, revival of Islam, they want to take over the world and so all sorts of things. You see, I come from a background, conventional background. I have never gone to a religious school. Of course, I can read Quran and Sunnah. Of course, I'm Muslim. I come from Bangladesh. I lived all of my adult life in the United States. And I live in a red state. And, you know, mentioning Sharia in my state as a law is not allowed in the court. So I'm doing a jihad myself on my part. So, but what I'm saying that living in this area, it is also happening as a bridge between East and West. So I'm trying to recruit, I'm trying to tell people through the conventional way of doing Islamic finance research, you know, data collection, analysis, interpretation, so that I can tell them the message, look, there's a value imperative of Islamic finance that is good for everyone. So that's the part I'm trying to sell. And same thing you should keep in mind, why you're doing this. Just because you have to write a paper, and please don't turn into your term paper to a journal, you know, right away. Spend some time, you know, at least you should go through these things 2 or 3 times a review process. And many often I have noticed that papers that I get for my journal, about 50% have a similarity anywhere between 50 to 60%. Partly because many cases, they really do not know how to write a standard written English, how to cite things. So these are some of these things I would request my Indonesian brothers and sisters, graduate level, you teach them the research method, how to write, what is acceptable of way of writing or not. And most of the papers are being rejected because of this reason. And secondly, emphasizing on writing good English, because all the Web of Science Scopus is very important, you know, and if you write a paper, if you think that you are good in something, not everyone is good in everything. You are good in analysis, you're good in data management, somebody good in writing. So you have to have a team who write the paper as a joint product, and then make sure you have this paper
Yang
copy edited.
sudah dapat masukan ya, saran dari penguji tadi, Pak King. Nanti kami
MM, CS.
Sorry, Prof, I mute maybe. Okay, continue,
Okay.
Prof, please.
Yeah, so that's my answer really. So I pretty much said what I wanted to tell you.
Yeah. Okay,
Can I
thank you,
ask something?
Prof. The next question is, how important is Scopus for researcher? What are Scopus advantages over Web of Science? How to determine the ranking of Q1, 2, 3, and 4? Does submitting a journal article on Scopus must cite a journal on Scopus as well?
Okay. First of all, three things in order to get your paper or journal cited and moving up the index category. As I mentioned before, Q4, Q3, Q2, Q1, it is done by journal citation report. It basically takes information from Scopus and Web of Science and that it ranks against a benchmark against its competitors and so on. There is very little you can do except doing three things continuously and consistently. One is you have to have a well-known authors write in your journal. The other journals have to cite papers published in your journal. And third thing you can do, have few issues guest edited by international reputable scholar for your journal. So these are the things if you do that will improve quality as well as also the Q4, Q3, Q2, Q1. I would not really put too much emphasis on those Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. It will come automatically if the quality of your journal is good and quality of articles are good and the reputable scholars are writing in your journal. And your journal, anything that is published there is being cited, another high quality journal. And that's how you build up your reputation.
Thank you, Prof. Next, Prof. M. Nurianto Al-Arif would like to raise a question to Prof. Kabir Hasan, please.
No, Bu Nur, no. Maybe the other participant can give a question for Prof. Kabir.
Okay, can I ask?
Yes, please.
Prof. Kabir, thank you. My name is Prayudi Azwar. I'm really interested of your statement that Scopus is the wing or the profit part of the Elsevier, and then there's they manage that and so-called that we are now most of our journals in Indonesia trying or striving for having a Q1, Q2 journal indexed based on Scopus. So in this, according to you, if we have to pursue for this kind of index instead of Scopus, which one is better according to you? And how we can, what is really matters for actually for Indonesian academics, academician, because most of us are running for the Scopus, and the other part of the researchers told that some professors told that when we are running for these indexed international indexed, there's also a chance that our research and informations and knowledge was based or pulled on them, and that kind of asymmetric informations or asymmetric knowledge will happen between we and these Scopus indexed. Thank you.
Okay, I'm hearing this word Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. Remember, this Q1, Q2, Q3 for ranking are based on journals indexed in Scopus and Web of Science, and also others. You'll see some journals in this Q1, Q2 may not be even indexed in Web of Science, maybe indexed in Scopus, or may not be indexed in any of these things. So I would really, if I were you, I would submit my journal for both Web of Science and for Scopus simultaneously. And if you can, it usually takes longer for Scopus, from my experience, than Web of Science ESCI. So if you submit simultaneously, and if you do, the criteria that I mentioned during my presentation, 1, 2, there are 4 stages. If you do 3 stage, and these are pretty typical stuff that you do for any journal, time limitation 2 years, regularity, content, and all this thing. Then if you are accepted in ESCI, then your citation builds up. This Scopus or Web of Science starts collecting citation, and that will help your process in this Scopus as well. Now, I would not, because it's not under your control really. I mean, Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. Q4 is the lowest. Like, for example, I didn't know that my journal was Q4, and recently it has been upgraded to Q3. But I know many good journals, better than mine, are in Q4. So sometimes those indexing, as I said, those who can market their journal better. So there is some correlation of marketing our journal and getting into this marketing, halal marketing, then you can get your journal to this ranking faster. But I would emphasize more on having quality papers published in a journal, having a regularity, having a clear review process, editorial policy, and try to disseminate your information to the social media to everyone so people know you attract high quality or highly indexed authors, H-index. So there are 150, you can Google search, you can go to Scopus, you can invite them to write in your journal, and that's going to increase your visibility, because the Scopus and all this AI, artificial intelligence, and the radar technology they use, they're going to pick up your journal because somebody has written in this, and which is also well known in the Scopus and Web of Science. So I would emphasize on that thing rather than Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, and tell your superiors that that's not the way we should go. We should go with the quality, and these things will automatically follow. And be patient, be patient. Very quickly, this horse race, please don't do that.
1, 2, 3. Ya, saya misalnya Q3 saya.
Thank you, Prof.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Prof? Asarya, Prof. Assalamualaikum.
Yes. Assalamualaikum.
How are you?
All right, brother. How are you?
Good, alhamdulillah. Prof,
yes.
There are maybe conflicting interest probably. Should we specialize in our journal? For example, we only specialize in Islamic monetary, for example, or would be better if we loosen the specialization, because you can have more journal submission, but if you specialize in only certain topic, you can, maybe you will be better chance to index in Scopus or World of Science, but you will get fewer submission. What do you think about this?
No, actually, Askarya, it's not true really. I mean, yes, of course, you have a specific core focus is Islamic monetary economics. Keep this core focus. That doesn't mean that you cannot invite or publish other types of Islamic finance papers. So, and it is not true that, yes, one of the criteria, but this is out of 24, 28 criteria of Web of Science. This is just one. So, but you need to also increase the submission. Islamic monetary economics is very under-researched area, unfortunately. And universities also do not teach it well. Everything that we do, like mimicking, conventional monetary policy, try to, do a fixed job to make it Islamic. So it is good, don't lose that focus, but you really cannot get enough quality publication to run your journal on a regular basis. So I would invite all types of journal, but keep the focus as it is and try to encourage, people to write in Islamic monetary economics and so on.
Should we also focus on certain GAL classifications, for example?
Yes. Yes, I think that is helpful because they also look at this, one of the metrics they used in the artificial intelligence, or rather the technology they use in order to do the bibliometric analysis they do. Yes.
That also will decrease the submission if we focus on certain GL classification, right?
No, but what I'm saying that don't make it a requirement that it has to be within this thing, but
Okay.
preferable.
Yes, yes.
Never make any requirement. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you cannot run your journal. You will not
Yeah,
get
okay.
enough public submission
Yes.
to begin with.
Yeah. Thank you, Prof.
Yes. Thanks.
Next question, Prof, from Abu Talib Muhammad Munawar. Dear Prof, are the impact factors of Scopus and Web of Science similar in GCR, or is it also for WoS?
Actually, to be honest with you, JCR, my understanding, I'm not an expert, but I understand JCR Journal Citation Report collects information from Web of Science and Scopus. The impact factor is purely done by Web of Science. You know, they do this 2-year, you know, if the paper citation they get in 2019, they divide it by all the citation 2017 and 18. And for site score, they use by Scopus or JCR is like a 3-year window, same methodology. So my answer is half-educated answer. I know the process of Scopus and Web of Science, but I know the JCR uses Web of Science and Scopus in order to do their Q1 to Q4 ranking. I do not know whether I answered it fully, but this is the best I can tell you.
Okay. Yeah. Thank Prof. Is there any other would like to raise question to Prof. Kabir Hassan? You can
Okay,
unmute. Yes,
I see
please.
that there is one in the chat box. Prof, is there a Scopus Index journal that access Indonesian Arabic articles? The answer is no. You have to have the abstract keyword has to have in English. The article can be in Arabic, but because it is a Roman language based, the chance is very low, but it is not, you are not forbidden. But if you're totally written in Indonesian or totally written in Arabic, you are forbidden. Because you do not meet a one minimum criteria set by the Scopus of Web of Science.
Thank you, Prof. Another question from M. Zaini Miftah. Prof. Kabir, should a journal be a member of COPE before submitting to Scopus?
I think not necessarily. I think if there is some money involved, because my journal is owned by Emerald, so they are the member of COPE and they have to pay a submission to the COPE. But for you, it is not really. But you can say in your that you follow the COPE guidelines. Being a member, because remember, COPE is not owned by Elsevier or Clarivate. So their business model is different. This is a non-profit. So that really is not going to go. The Scopus, the Elsevier and Clarivate doesn't make money, whether you are a member of COPE or not. So they're least interested about that part. You have to remember these two things, even the fight, they are really a multi-billion-dollar business. They really use our time, editorial board. You think that we make money? Not really. Only the top 5-10 articles, the journal editors make money. Otherwise, you cannot attract a high quality or highly published author to become an editor because it's a huge undertaking. But the majority of the journal, there is a free labor. So they are making money out of you, and their profit margin is 40 to 50%. You know, as an editor, you probably can make $20,000. So a year, $20,000, you know, managing, I'm just giving a rough figure, it varies, or managing 500 to 600 papers is nothing really. The amount of time, sometimes I get crazy, you know, and sometimes it's not only that. Also, I want to be helpful. I want to develop a field. I want to make Islamic finance a an academic field, a field of scientific inquiry. So I have to encourage authors. If I see a badly written paper, but it has some message is good, so I try to encourage them. So that takes an extra effort. Unfortunately, you do not get this in the Western journals. Those are already ranked Scopus or Web of Science. They really don't care. Another thing that I face, and very often, I'm approached, this prof, please help me to get a paper published in Web of Science or Scopus. In many cases, yes, I do my part, I do editing, I do say, ask them to run, revise this and that with my own way of looking at this paper, and sometimes the data analysis. But many cases they come to me because they do not have the money to pay the submission fee. And the paper can be rejected within 7 days. And the submission fee on the average runs between $200 to $300 per paper. So that puts a restriction on the part of the authors coming from the developing countries and Muslim 57 OIC countries too. So, and I would ask in the Indonesian universities, if you want to emphasize Scopus, make sure you're willing to pay the submission fee to the authors, because it's not free. And submission fee does not mean that the paper will be accepted. The paper can be rejected. But what I want to emphasize, do not pay to publish in predatory journals. Do not. It's going to hurt you in the long run. It's going to bad for our reputation. So please don't.
May I ask question?
Sure.
Yes, please. Yes,
yes,
please.
Professor Kabir Hassan.
Yes.
From your experience, is there any kind of sort of politics or politizations in this issue of publishing and indexations? Is there any case of that? Yes, I am Dr. Ugi.
How are you, Dr. Ugi?
Fine, thank you.
Dr. Ugi, the answer is yes. Politics is everywhere.
Can you tell us more about it?
First of all, there are top 5 economics journal. Just recently, if you read Wall Street Journal came out, the journal editor have their own bias. They sit in the top 5 to 10 universities in the world, and they have their own way of looking at the world. And if something does not fit with their world vision or their way of looking at things, even though it's a wonderfully written executed paper, it doesn't get any chance. Okay, so you have to belong to a club in order to publish in those edit journals. Getting into Scopus, there is less politics in the sense, of course, there's a qualitative factor, but I would say that, of course, that is everywhere, because they rely more on technology to do all this scientific bibliometric analysis. So there is less room for manipulation. But one thing I can tell you, if somebody comes and tells you, hey, look, make me an advisor or make me do something for a fee, I'm going to make sure or accelerate the process of a journal being indexed, this is a bogus thing. Nobody can do that, okay? And even if it does, the word will get around, and next time your journal will be delisted. So please don't go that route. Yes, of course, like for example, you invite top scholars to your university, give lectures, this and that, encourage them to publish in your journal. One of the things that I faced in the initial stage, I begged my brothers, Muslim brothers and sisters, to publish in my journal so that it gets citation. They would not do that. So sometimes we have to show our Muslim face as well too. We have to help each other. What cost does it have if I publish one journal in Askarias, or somebody else, Askaria runs 2 journal, or some other journal? That's the way to helping another brother, another journal to move up. But initially, I did not get this help either. They think that, oh, your journal is not indexed. Why should I publish there? That's the reason you should publish, so that it gets indexed. It is helping and helping many others. So I want you to be generous as well. Another thing happens, we have this intellectual capital and want to protect it. So let's say you come up with 2 or 3 influential paper and you want to protect it. So later on, you found out you're wrong, and you are really very, very paternalistic by any means you want to protect your intellectual capital. That's also is happening in in academic publishing as well. For example, efficient market hypothesis. I don't believe in it, but when I was a graduate student, any paper that you write, you have to show at the end that it conforms to the efficient market hypothesis paradigm. But it took another paradigm shift, another Nobel laureate to break this myth. You know, the irrational exuberance, another person got a Nobel Prize, you know, behavior finance. So it takes time to change the shifting paradigm. So, and now we are bringing up with Islamic finance, and it may be many people are fearful of it because of bad publicity. And I find many people are fearful of it because there is no future to it, because how do you do this? Any paper that you write, it has to be data manipulated, data intensive, and so on. And unfortunately, Islamic finance industry is very non-transparent. You know, if you want to do a study, I'm not talking about survey. I mean, survey 90% you do survey because you do not have primary data. But we do not have a way of collecting and preserving primary data for Islamic finance. You know, so few papers that you see in Scopus or ISL level journal Islamic finance paper is on mutual fund, banking efficiency, because again, the data was collected and curated by the commercial entity, and you buy those data from them with a high price. So you are emboldened, you have become a slave to their business model and policy. Somehow you need to really get out of this thing, and you have to develop our own database. And without developing the database, you know, it's not going to progress as far as we can, and anybody can throw us out completely. I hear this word a lot. You know, Islamic finance is going down, and so it pains me. And part of this rumor is true because we are not really coming up with anything new. You know, as journal editor, how many efficiency paper you can write? Commercial bank and Islamic banking is doing the same thing. We are not being able to bring new things because we do not have data to do that. I'm talking about secondary data, not primary data. So please, in your research and development, and Sultan, you're hearing, you must have some fun developing the database so that people can do research on these things.
Again, another question, Prof. You
Yes.
are talking about predatory journals. I think most of our friends here are not really aware of this. Can you tell us about this?
Okay.
Predatory journal.
Okay, the predatory journal comes in a different form. Okay, first form they will say that okay, you submit. Okay, it will go to the referee process. We do not charge any submission fee, but we have we charge you a publication fee. Okay, that's one way of exploiting you. So you get your paper accepted within a month, and they'll tell you pay $1,000 to publish in the journal. Some way they want to bypass one of the requirement by the Scopus or the scope that, okay, we are not really asking them to publish in our journal. All we are asking to pay or defray our publication costs. So that's another way of exploiting a predatory. That's the number one. Number two, so this is the least visible, least way of catch it, that they are also predatory journals. Second one, they'll say that, okay, you want to publish it in a week, it will cost you $300. If you want to publish in a month, it will cost you, $100. So they will change the pricing, and this is purely a predatory journal. And most of these things, unfortunately, these predatory journals are run by, brothers from Nigeria or Pakistan, but they will have an address in Australia or on Germany and some of the East European countries. So, and I can share, I'll send Sultan a link where you can really look at which are the predatory journals, who are the predatory publishers. And I think you should really disseminate in Indonesia as well, so that you know who are these people trying to exploit. And I wouldn't mind if it is quality journal, it is not. And at one time, about 10 years ago, I used to go to Malaysia a lot, and there was a called Journal of African Management something. That was a ISL level journal. And most probably 50% of Malaysian academics has a publication there, because you pay your fees, you get your paper published, ISI, you needed this because publication, for your promotion and so on, eventually got caught. So it does not really. And the United States, we made a policy of all universities, if we ever find that you have published a paper in a predatory journal, you will be penalized for it. So please, and it is going to become a norm because we really want to protect our intellectual capital and we want to stop this malpractice. And please don't pray for it. You know, sometimes we have this publication pressure, my promotion is coming. Yeah, there are many ways of getting a publication. You can ask your friend to help, you know, you be part of it. I'm not saying free riding. There are many ways of not, you know, doing it rather than following a publication, I mean, a predatory publication procedure. I hope I answered your question, brother. It was a long answer, but that's
Thank
all
you,
I have
Prof.
to say.
Thank you, Prof.
Prof, can I ask again, Prof?
Sure.
Based on Dr. Ugi view about the he asked about the politics in journal. Do you think that we need to develop our own Scopus, something like that?
That will be an excellent idea. Why not? Why should we depend on them? Who are they to tell us whether we are good or bad? First of all, 90% of them don't understand Islamic finance or don't even care for it. Why should we depend on them? I go for it 100%, Dr. Askaria. That's a great idea.
Why don't we start one, Prof?
Yeah, we should. I mean, take a lead. I'll be with you. Any good thing that you do, I will be. But you see, I live in a country, there is a clear separation of religion and all this thing. And doing Islamic finance sitting in the United States is a jihad by itself, believe me. It's not easy. So, but any activity that you do and take outside, and that's one of the reasons I travel quite extensively, because this is close to my heart, Islamic finance. You know, I'm wearing two hats. I have to do same level of conventional finance research because of my job, but that I really do not enjoy. I have to do it because of reputation and all these things. But Islamic finance is close to my heart and I believe in it. I believe that it really can solve the economic malaise of the whole world, not only for Muslims. So I come from that philosophy, and that's the reason I still sticking to it. I try to promote it as many ways as I can.
Thank you, Prof. Probably Pak Emir could start this development of our new Scopus.
With your help, we will go for it, Professor Askaria, for sure.
Inshallah.
Okay. Next question, Prof. from Bambang Sutrisno. According to my observation, the quality of key two journal index in WoS and Scopus is worse than Q3 journal index in WoS and Scopus. Why?
I've been trying to tell you all along. This thing is based on some artificial intelligence, some technology they use, bibliometric analysis, their software they use. So even I told you that there are a lot of journals that I see on the higher rank, but they are not really, they're not good quality journals. So part of this thing, my reading is that, you know, the marketing of the journal. So the editors, the editorial board are good in marketing the journal better than the others. Some of this probably you should do minimum because you really need to know who you are, but you should not really overplay in an unethical way. So many people do overplay in an unethical way. Interestingly, I was looking at the other day, a very young PhD scholar, I wouldn't name, and I was looking at H index, it's like in 30s. Then I went through this, then I have noticed that the game that person is playing. But eventually, that's what I said at my last slide, you know, indexing does not mean or does not lead to quality, or does not necessarily mean quality. So indexing is one of many factors. So, and if you start playing this game to begin with, at the beginning of your research career, that you try to promote yourself, you will not become a good researcher. With time, it will come. Your objective should be trying to learn new things, try to be a good researcher, try to write well, try to convincingly do all these things, rather than write a paper and trying using entire social media, you know, to promote yourself. And that is not Islamic either. Forget about, of course, unethical, but not Islamic either, you know. So you have to do a right balance. Yes, you have to let them know that I have written this paper and I would like you to read it, those kind of things. Of course, to a degree you promote, but not play this number games or citation game that many people do. I would strongly advise against it.
Thank you, Prof. Question from our university, because we come from the Islamic university, so mostly actually coming from the religious studies. So in terms of the journal specializing in Islamic economics and Islamic finance, if we would like to submit to Scopus or WoS, can we make the category under the religious studies? Because some says that if we apply under the category of economics or finance, then the competition will be very tight. What's your suggestion, Prof?
Okay, but here is a question of ethics, right? I mean, if you think that your journal is economics, why should you be submitting to religious studies? Because it is not religious studies, right? So you have to, draw the line. You have to call the shots, right and wrong. Do you want indexing quickly, or you want to do it right? Because ultimately, I believe the longevity will depend on the quality and purpose and the aim and objectives that you have set up for your journal.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Is there any other question, or somebody would like to raise question directly to Prof. Kabir Hassan? Please unmute your speaker.
I do not hear anything.
Yeah.
Okay, Prof. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
This is Habibur Rahman. I'm from I'm lecturer in the university in Malaysia, but I am from Bangladesh, Prof. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum. I enjoy your presentation. So, Prof, is there any chance if let's say any journal publish in not in English language other than language, for example, Bengali, so we just have abstract in English? So is there any chance to be indexed in Scopus and so on?
Yes, there is. You can submit, but the bar will be very high because, they prefer the journal should be in English language. But there will be no bar as long as it has English abstract, English keywords, and JCL classification.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Prof. Okay.
So, any other questions, Sultan?
Assalamualaikum, Prof.
Yes.
May I give a question? Okay. My name is Molly from Bandung. Actually, what is the most cases that make the journal rejected? Is it is about the technical, or it is about the quality of the journal? That's
okay.
all.
What happens? Let me tell you, because I sort of roam around the circle of the editors and go to different conferences, the conventional conferences. First of all, whether you like it or not, the editors 90% hate Islamic finance. They don't like it. Okay, they think that it's a fad. But the same editors will come to your university if you invite him as a keynote speaker and feed him because he wants to say something. But so these are munafiqs. Okay, so now you're hearing this from me, and that's true. But there are 10% editors, and they are Christian, non-Muslim, but they believe in Islamic finance. They think that there's a value proposition. But these are the people are not really commercial minded. So they really will not come and pay or pay for prey within this thing. Now, it's difficult. It's difficult to get published in Western journals, Web of Science, and anything in Islamic finance. They really do not entertain any conceptual paper. Okay, it has to have the typical things, you know, a model, hypothesis, data analysis, conclusion. It has to answer what is the objective, what is the importance, and most importantly, what is the contribution to the literature. Since many of the editors don't even know what Islamic finance is, they cannot see the contribution. So it is tough. So what is happening? We have to really build a coalition of scholars who are published in this web of science to help each other. Because when, let's say, a name goes, for example, Askaria, he has published in Web of Science. So when his name goes with a paper, they give a second thought before just rejecting or putting this in the waste basket. And believe me, that is true. Now, the best way, and this is a generational jihad we have to do, keep working what we believe in, developing database, and empiricism. Unfortunately, the Islamic studies, or we really, sometimes it's also philosophical question. So like, for example, let me give you the zakat, or we say the Quranic ayah, the riba is bad, it exploits people. So we really, in order to, we can do a, cause and testing, developing hypothesis and testing. We are not really questioning the ayat itself. We are looking at the implication of this thing. So we should develop the database. We should have, longitudinal data of an area the zakat is given to a government program, and look at the change of the people's behavior, way of living, their wealth status, and so on. So we should start developing those kind of things. Unfortunately, all these research grants that are given occasionally by Bank of Indonesia or any other organization, just for a time-specific thing. So they run a survey, they write a paper, then it's gone. So nothing is preserved. You really need to develop from the government level, develop this database. Whenever you give a research grant, make sure the data quality and preservation has to be there. So that's the way. So I can go back and can check what you have done, whether you have done it right. Or looking at your data, I can come up with a different answer. But unfortunately, that is not happening. But let me tell you something. In next 5 years, any paper that you write, right now they're asking you, you have to submit your data as well as your code and the econometric model, how you have done this. So it's like a scientific research. So anybody can come back and check your results, because there has been a lot of scientific misconduct found. You submit a paper, you have nice little table, because smart guy, you can manipulate, you create numbers, and actually it is all based on bogus. And there has been few incidents in very top journals. So the wait, we cannot, and now we are restricted, will be more restricted if we cannot produce and supply the data with our code, how we run the econometrics. Did I answer your question, sister or brother?
Okay, thank you very much. It's very clear for me. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you very much, Prof. Kabir, for all your presentation and then the question and answer sessions. I think we come to the end of this international webinar. If I may conclude that, yeah, Prof. Kabir has already presented the way how to get index our journal into the Scopus and Web of Science, and then he recommend us to submit at the same time, parallel. And then some tips is publish hot topics, improve the quality of paper, improve all the stakeholders of the journal, and market the journal. And also he always emphasize about the quality, and also feasibility, and be patient. Like from the best learning of the Prof. Kabir, it takes around 10 years, yeah, Prof, to be indexed by Scopus and Web of Science. Okay, before we close, there will be a closing remark from Pak Dr. Sultan Emir Hidayat from the KNEKS. Pak Dr. Emir, time is yours, please.
Thank you, Ibu Profesor Nur Hidayah. Alhamdulillah, we have got a lot of information and knowledge from Honorable Professor Muhammad Kabir Hasan. We also have seen an interactive Q&A session And I'm very happy to see few participants are even from outside Indonesia. We have Dr. Ugi Soeharto from Oman, and we have also a professor from Malaysia, who is also originally from Bangladesh. That makes our webinar is really international. Alhamdulillah. I'm also happy that many journal editors are with us here. For example, Professor Askaria, Professor Muhammad Nurianto Al-Arif, and even the moderator herself, Professor Nur Hidayah. She is actually editor-in-chief of one of the journals. I also saw my uncle, Professor Rifki Ismail, and also my senior, Professor Rahmatina, and others. I couldn't mention their names one by one here. And of course, as per the webinar's title, I am very happy that today we have learned from the best practice on how to index a journal in Scopus and Web of Science. Again, I would like to express my utmost appreciation to Professor Dr. Muhammad Kabir Hasan, who has shared his experience, knowledge, and tips on how to improve the quality and standard of a journal. I also came to know that Professor Kabir Hasan is editor for several journals here in Indonesia. I really hope this collaboration can be extended in the near future, so you can help more journals in Indonesia to improve their quality and standard. And inshallah, we hope more journals from Indonesia will be indexed by international reputable databases. With that, I end my short closing remarks. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Good night
Thank you.
and good morning.
Thank you very much, Prof.
Thank you,
Kabir
Prof.
Hasan.
Kabir.
Thank you, Prof.
Jazakumullah
Kabir.
khairan kathiran.
Jazakumullah khair, Profesor Kabir.
Yeah. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, bapak-bapak, ibu-ibu, for all your attendance. And then for those who haven't filled out the attendance list and also certificate link, please fill it out so you can get the certificate automatically sent into your email. Once again, thank you very much. Jazakumullah khairan kathiran from us to Professor Muhammad Kabir Hasan, and also for Dr. Sultan Emir, and also all colleagues from the KNEKS. We from Jakarta State Islamic University would like to extend all your participations in the international webinar, and we also hope that our collaboration can be extended in the near future. Let's close our international webinar today with Hamdalah. Alhamdulillahirrahmanirrahim. Billahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Prof.
Thank you. Good night and good morning.
Good night, Prof. Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Pak.